Matthew 24 mentions the Great Tribulation, and tribulation means cause of great suffering or trouble. And one of the most important questions about the Great Tribulation is, when does it happen? And another question might be, does it happen before or after the rapture? Meaning, do we go through it? And although, there is always uncertainty and thinking about what Revelation is saying, because it's certainly going to be surprising when it actually occurs, there is a pretty clear sequence in Matthew 24 and 2 Thessalonians 2 that says, first of all, in verse 15, that in Matthew 24:15, that the signal event is going to be what's known as the Abomination of Desolation being revealed and standing in the holy place. And it refers, verse 15 specifically refers back to Daniel 9:27. And Daniel 9:27 also uses the same term, Abomination of Desolation. And it says that this person, this one referred to as the Abomination of Desolation, will put an end to the daily sacrifice and offering in the temple. And that holy place, and where the putting an end to the daily sacrifice and offering will occur, is probably here, where the temple is likely to exist. And this person, who is referred to as the Abomination of Desolation, is the Antichrist. And it talks more about him in 2 Thessalonians 2, about how he essentially exalts himself as God, and he demands the worship of people, and that he is worshipped right here in this temple area. He sets himself up here as God, and all the world worships him. And this event, when it happens, Jesus says in Matthew 24, when you see this happening, he says, flee. If you're in Judea, run, flee to the mountains. If you're on the roof, go down and leave without even getting your things. And he says that we hope that you are not pregnant at this time when you have trouble, when you have to flee. And in verse 21, this time that begins with the revelation or the revealing of the Antichrist is called the Great Tribulation. That's verse 21. So there's the initial sequence there. Is at first the Antichrist is revealed here, seeking the worship of people, exalting himself above God. And that's in verse 15. It's the Abomination of Desolation in Daniel. And after that, the period of trouble or chaos that comes is known as the Great Tribulation. And no one knows the answer to when does that happen. In verse 36 of Matthew 24, this says, no one, not even the angels, except the Father in heaven, knows the day or the hour, and the second coming of Jesus. And so no one can say when this is going to happen. But these verses in Matthew 24 and 2 Thessalonians 2 do provide some order, sequence that can be reliably ascertained, because the words that they use, that Matthew uses, that really Jesus uses, are sequential words like then or after. And so in verse 29, after the time is called the Great Tribulation, Jesus says, after these things, after this tribulation, then the Son of Man will come in the clouds. And so you have the revealing of the Antichrist, verse 15. You have the Great Tribulation in verse 21. Then in verse 29 it says, after this tribulation, the Son of Man will come. So this sequence, this basic sequence of revealing of the Antichrist, the Great Tribulation, and then the rapture are pretty fixed. Although Daniel indicates what the one is, who this Abomination of Desolation is, 2 Thessalonians talks more about who specifically he is. And it says, this is what it says. It says about him. It says that he sets himself up in the holy place, and that he seeks the worship of people, and he exalts himself above all. And this will be like one of the greatest evils that ever occurs. And this event, no one will miss this event. This event is not going to be mistaken for something, innocent. And this event is not going to be, something that people will have any real debate over. He is called the son of perdition. And it says he opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God. He sits in the temple of God right here, and he shows himself that he is God. And in Revelation 13, it talks about the false prophet and the worship of the beast, and it talks about the worship of the image of the beast. And so this event was going to be so shocking and so evil, and you'll know that it's not going to occur in Syria, it's not going to occur in Egypt, it's got to occur at the temple right here. And so when you see this event happening, Jesus says, flee. And it's almost like an airplane safety instruction where no one listens to the safety instructions because they don't expect the airplane to fall out of the sky. But if you were in an airplane and you knew it was going to crash, as this world is going to crash, you would listen to those safety instructions very carefully. And these instructions from Jesus about the Great Tribulation are as important as those airline instructions before a crash, because listening and understanding could make the difference between losing and saving not just your life, but your soul, your salvation. And so this event of revealing of the Antichrist is going to inaugurate the Great Tribulation. And the Great Tribulation is something that no person, it says, no person would even be able to maybe, face it on their own if those days were not cut short. And there's going to be a lot of deception also. And there is this question then of, well, when are the Christians removed from the earth? When does the rapture happen? And as far as I am aware, it's my judgment, but I don't think anything supports that the rapture happens before this Great Tribulation. Certainly, judgment comes upon the world after the rapture, but it's pretty clear in the sequence of Matthew 24 and 2 Thessalonians 2 that the rapture happens only after the Great Tribulation. This also is something that is said in 2 Thessalonians 2, because it says, Paul is writing to the believers and he's saying, don't be troubled. I don't want you to be troubled and think that the rapture already happened, because it didn't happen. And it says that the rapture is not going to happen until two things occur. First, there's going to be a revealing of the man of lawlessness, which is what we were just talking about, which is consistent with Matthew 24, that the man of lawlessness must be revealed here at the temple. And then the second thing is that there's going to be a falling away. And a falling away of the faith, falling away by people of the faith. And it doesn't say that this falling away occurs during the Great Tribulation explicitly, but it does say that the Antichrist will be revealed and the falling away will happen, and then the rapture will happen. And so we know, at least based on Matthew 24 and 2 Thessalonians 2, that the first event is going to be the revealing of the Antichrist. That's shared in both of those chapters. There's going to be a great tribulation and a falling away happening after that time and before the rapture. And it doesn't say what the sequence is or whether those things happen at the same time or whether the tribulation causes the falling away. But after both the tribulation and the falling away, then there's going to be the rapture. And the reason it helps to know what is being explained to us here is so that we will be prepared and we will not be caught unaware. And that's why Jesus tells us these things beforehand, so that when they happen, we won't be shaken. And also, in a sense, no one cares right now in the way that we would care when these things begin to happen. But once these things begin to happen, there's like a hysteria that comes upon people, that comes upon us. And I don't know if you've ever been in a panic situation, but people stop thinking, and this chaos takes over. And so, in a way, practicing is the way to be able to rely on something you've committed to your memory, to your mind, to your soul, and putting these things in our soul now, meditating upon them, dwelling upon them, and really preparing our soul, ourself, so that we will not be fazed and we will not be dismayed or shaken. It's probably one of the wiser things that we could do. Even though we don't know when this will happen, we do know this question about sequence.